As Nicholas Rain sat in solitude in the hotel lobby, he never anticipated the arrival of three identical little girls. With their blonde hair and wide-eyed innocence, they approached him, clutching a silver heart necklace that had been absent from his life for 6 long years. With a single glance, all that he had concealed surged forth. He had bestowed that necklace upon the one woman who held his heart, the individual who vanished without a trace. Before him stood 3 undeniable reminders that she might not have walked away from unscathed. Nicholas Rain was skeptical of destiny. His existence was meticulously crafted, defined by order, accuracy, and careful planning. He orchestrated every detail, from his meals to his business deals, weeks ahead of time. When his schedule unexpectedly changed that morning, with his flight to New York delayed and him being rebooked into a suite at his own hotel in downtown Seattle, he regarded it as merely a logistical inconvenience. He remained unaware that this small disturbance would mark the start of everything he believed he had lost returning to him. The lobby exuded a serene ambience for a weekday morning, primarily occupied by a handful of early check-ins and hotel staff bustling about in preparation for a corporate event. Nicholas found himself seated in a secluded lounge, cradling a cup of coffee while his phone lay idle on the table beside him. He gazed out the window, lost in a sea of thoughts that danced just beyond his reach, a rarity for him. Today, the silence enveloped him in a way that felt distinct, neither burdensome nor airy, but rather strange and new. He remained oblivious to their approach until they were directly before him. 3 little girls with golden locks, about 6 years old, stood shoulder to shoulder like a tiny battalion, their hands clasped together and their faces reflecting a blend of anxiety and wonder. Their hair was styled in matching braids, and their soft brown eyes, wide and strikingly familiar, locked onto him with a subtle yet profound intensity. "Excuse me?" the one in the center said, her voice measured yet assured. "Have you come across a necklace like this?" She raised a small silver heart suspended from a fine chain, an object that could belong to any child. Yet this particular one left Nicholas momentarily speechless. He was aware of it, understood it more deeply than any possession he had. It was the necklace he had bestowed upon Olivia Hart for her birthday, 6.5 years prior. After weeks of careful selection, he engraved it with a solitary letter, O, on the reverse side. It was straightforward, subtle, and rich with significance. She had donned it daily until the moment she disappeared. He gazed at the necklace, then at the small girl clutching it, and sensed a peculiar, gradual loosening start within his heart. "Where did you get that?" he inquired, his voice dropping unexpectedly. "It's our mom's," the second girl responded hastily. "She claims it was from someone significant, yet we never encountered him." Nicholas felt his heart quicken, but he maintained a calm demeanor. "What is your mother's name?" The 3 girls exchanged glances before responding. The third one, who had remained silent until now, uttered the name with such quietness that it seemed to vanish into the space surrounding them. Olivia. In that moment, the world around him vanished. The background noise, the soft murmur of hotel music, the barista announcing orders, all of it faded away under the gravity of that single name. His chest constricted. Olivia Hart. The lady who had once been his entire world. The woman who disappeared from his life 6 years prior, leaving behind no explanation, no warning, and no farewell. He had sought, contacted, sent individuals, explored. She had vanished entirely. Before him stood 3 little girls, each reflecting the other, and, more unsettlingly, reflecting him as well. Golden locks that surely traced back to her. Yet there was an undeniable resemblance in the contours of their mouths, the arch of their brows, and the gentle curve of their cheekbones that captivated his attention. And those eyes, those wide, searching eyes, were hers in hue, yet something in the gaze belonged to him. He attempted to maintain a steady breath. "Is your mom here now?" "She's checking in," the first girl inquired. We settled into our seats as she conversed with the woman at the desk. He rose slowly, his heart pounding heavily in his chest. Uncertainty loomed over him regarding what lay ahead. He was uncertain about his readiness. Yet one truth stood clear: he had to see her. If this was indeed reality, if these girls were truly who he dreaded they might be, then everything he believed he had left in the past had just re-emerged in his life. Nicholas remained motionless for a moment. His legs were taut, his hands clenched subtly at his sides, as if his whole being was striving to remain still while his heart raced ahead. The girls had settled back into their seats, whispering and glancing at the necklace as if it contained a mystery they were yet to grasp. He observed them with an unusual blend of fascination and fear, uncertain which feeling would prevail. It was as if he were perched on the brink of a precipice, oblivious to the depth of the drop or what lay beneath. Then, from the periphery of his vision, he caught sight of her. Olivia emerged by the front desk, a suitcase trailing behind her, and a weathered messenger bag draped across her shoulder. Her hair had grown longer, gathered in a relaxed braid, its hue deeper than he recalled, yet still undeniably hers. Her posture was both careful and serene. She leaned in a bit as she addressed the receptionist, her face reflecting a blend of warmth and fatigue. When she turned and noticed the girls in the lobby, a smile spread across her lips. And then she saw him. For a fleeting moment, her whole being became still. The hue vanished from her cheeks, and her fingers instinctively tightened around the strap of her bag. Her gaze locked onto his, brimming with a mix of surprise and remorse. She remained still, neither advancing nor breaking the connection. Time seemed to have frozen, holding them in a suspended moment. Nicholas inhaled deeply and made his way across the lobby toward her. Each step weighed down on him, the atmosphere growing denser with every movement. He found himself at a loss for words, yet an undeniable urge compelled him to speak. Anything would do. Olivia, he uttered, and the sound of her name on his lips felt surreal once more. You're here. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. Meek, I believed you were. He paused, catching himself. The reality was, he had no idea what he believed. Lost? Gone forever. He had grieved for her as if she were no longer among the living. Yet here she was, standing before him, alive, tangible, unchanged in the ways that truly mattered, and utterly transformed in ways that stung. She cast a fleeting glance at the girls before turning her gaze back to him. Her throat constricted as she swallowed with difficulty. This isn't the way I envisioned you discovering this. His gaze darted to the children and then returned to her. They belong to me, don't they? There was no point in pretending. She didn't attempt to deceive. She remained composed, nodding slowly. Yes, that single word struck him like a punch to the heart. The world remained steady, yet something within him shattered. It wasn't anger that surged through him. It wasn't betrayal at all. It was sorrow, for the time lost, for the moments that would never return, for the birthdays, the first steps, the questions left unanswered. Why, he inquired, his voice now softer. Why didn't you tell me? She cast her gaze downward before locking eyes with him once more. Because I was afraid. Because I believed I was making the right choice. In that moment, I believed you would prioritize your career over us, and the thought of being an obstacle was unbearable. You were never an obstacle, he replied with intensity, his words spilling forth. You were everything. If only I had known, Olivia, I would have done anything. She shut her eyes for a moment, as if the burden of that realization was too heavy to bear. I understand that now. Yet, in that moment, I persuaded myself to think differently. And after they arrived, after I had created a foundation, I found myself at a loss on how to return. He moved in a bit, not menacing, just shattered. You can't simply vanish and take my kids away. You don't have the right to decide that by yourself. I understand, she repeated, her voice gentler this time. And I apologize. I truly am sorry. Silence enveloped them, not due to a lack of words, but because the weight of their previous exchanges hung heavily in the air. One of the girls broke the stillness, calling out, Mom, who is that? Olivia turned, her smile a practiced facade. Just a friend, darling. Nicholas chose not to correct her. Not at this moment. His voice carried a rough edge. His heart was still in pursuit of its rhythm. Yet, As he gazed at those three little girls, three reflections of himself in small form, he understood one undeniable truth. This was far from the end. It was merely the start. Later that evening, Nicholas found himself alone in his hotel suite, the city shimmering beyond the glass behind him, yet he remained oblivious to it all. The room was enveloped in silence, save for the soft murmur of far-off traffic, but his thoughts were a whirlwind. The dialogue with Olivia replayed incessantly, each phrase resonating more intensely than the one before. Her voice, steady yet uncertain, lingered in his mind, each pause heavy with the burden of lost time and every look imbued with the gravity of unspoken truths. 3 daughters. 3 small lives he had been oblivious to. How could he have overlooked so much? He had dedicated those years to constructing hotels in various countries, addressing audiences on international platforms, sharing meals with industry leaders, yet he remained unaware that 3 reflections of himself were taking their first steps, uttering their first words, maturing in his absence. It rendered all his accomplishments devoid of substance. Exquisite, refined, yet vacant. He recalled how one of the girls had tucked her hair behind her ear, a movement he recognized as his own. How another had narrowed her eyes when concentrating on something, just as he always did when poring over fine print. These weren't mere coincidences. They were ties of blood. They belonged to him. Sleep eluded him throughout the night. As dawn broke and light streamed through the lofty windows, Nicholas remained in the same chair, grappling with the reality that his life had just diverged into 2 paths, the one he had known until yesterday and the one he was only starting to grasp. He lacked a plan. The words to express the weighty emotion in his chest eluded him. Yet he was certain of his next steps. By midday, he strolled over to the front desk and inquired about Olivia's room number. The clerk paused, referencing privacy policies, until Nicholas revealed his name. The staff recognized him. He was the owner of the establishment. With a look of regret, the receptionist passed him the room number. He lingered outside her door longer than intended, contemplating whether to knock. He pondered what he might say if she opened the door and regarded him as she had in the lobby, as if he were a specter. Just as he gathered his thoughts, the door creaked ajar. Olivia appeared, one hand resting on the doorframe, the other tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. She appeared weary. Her gaze was fatigued, yet devoid of shock. She had anticipated his arrival. "I thought you might," she said softly, moving aside to allow him entry. The suite was simple yet tidy, brimming with signs of children. Coloring books lay scattered on the table. Small shoes rested by the couch, and a plush bunny sat on the bed. The scent of fruit snacks and vanilla lotion filled the air. He turned slowly, attempting to take it all in. Olivia gestured for him to take a seat. He didn't. "I need to know them," he insisted. "I understand," she responded. "I desire that as well. I'm just uncertain about how we can achieve this. Nick, I've been raising them by myself. I made a decision for both of us, perhaps incorrectly, and I'm uncertain how to introduce you into their lives without jeopardizing everything we've created. I don't wish to take anything from you," he expressed. "I want to avoid causing confusion or disturbing their world. Yet they belong to me. I have the right to understand them, and they have the right to understand me. We cannot ignore the reality of this situation." Olivia nodded, her bottom lip caught between her teeth, a familiar gesture from when she felt overwhelmed. They possess intelligence. They possess a natural curiosity. They pose inquiries, and we provide the responses. Together, she gazed at him intently. This moment had played out in her mind countless times, filled with accusations, fury, and perhaps even the sting of rejection. She never envisioned tranquility. She never pictured him standing there as a student eager to absorb rather than a figure asserting his claims. "They're in the other room," she remarked. "Feel free to greet them. However, maintain simplicity. Allow them to approach you." He nodded, and she made her way to the adjoining room, gently pushing the door open. The sound of girls' laughter poured out. Nicholas Rain, a man defined by numbers, power, and control, moved toward the enchanting melody of 3 little voices that had already transformed everything. As Nicholas entered the adjoining room, the noise momentarily hushed, as if the very atmosphere took a breath to recognize his presence. The space was vibrant and a touch disordered, with toys strewn about, crayons scattered, and backpacks left half open on the floor. 3 young girls sat cross-legged on the carpet, their eyes fixed on him with a pure, unguarded curiosity that only children can muster, keen, bright, and fearless. They were unaware of his true identity, not in precise terms. Yet, there was an instinctive awareness. Perhaps it was the manner in which Olivia lingered quietly behind him, her gaze fixed, torn between the urge to step in or to merely take it all in. Or perhaps it was in the manner in which Nicholas regarded them, with a careful and reverent gaze, as if this were the most significant boardroom he had ever entered. He crouched down gently, making an effort not to appear imposing. "Hi," he said, his voice quieter than normal.
"I'm Nicholas."
"I believe I may be someone you'll encounter quite frequently from now on." One of the girls tilted her head. "Are you Mommy's friend?" "I used to be," he said with a gentle smile. "I'd like to be again." Another girl, brimming with curiosity, pointed at him. "You look like me." Nicholas let out a soft laugh, one that surprised him. "I believe it's due to our bond." The 3 of them looked at him, absorbing that thought. No trace of fear.
No rejection.
Only intrigue. The 3rd girl, the one who had revealed the necklace to him the previous day, inched a bit closer. "Your words remind me of the voice I hear on Mommy's computer." Olivia couldn't help but smile at that moment. "That's because he is." Nicholas settled onto the floor, legs crossed, his jacket crumpling against the carpet, but he paid it no mind. He repeated their names, Ava, June, and Lily, and this time he recalled who was who. They eagerly displayed their drawings, bickering over which was superior, inquiring if he could draw horses, if he enjoyed macaroni and cheese, and if he had a favorite princess movie. He was unsure how to maintain the pace, yet he made an effort, and each time he faltered, they chuckled and drew nearer, as if their forgiveness added to the enjoyment. They hadn't inquired if he was their father. Not at this moment. Perhaps they were not entirely grasping the idea, or perhaps they hesitated, curious about the implications of inquiry. Nicholas remained patient. He felt no urge to label it. He simply had to be there. At one moment, Lily retrieved a photo album from the shelf and dropped it onto his lap. It was weighty and packed with images, birthdays, first steps, beach outings, art creations, spilled cereal, scraped knees. He turned each page with reverence, quietly lamenting all the moments he had missed. Yet he refused to succumb to sorrow. Instead, he gazed at each photograph with wonder. He observed their innocent faces, their playful expressions, the way Olivia had lovingly captured every moment. And he understood that she hadn't merely shielded them. She had invested her whole heart into ensuring they experienced a life filled with joy. Eventually, the girls grew restless and returned to their toys, pulling him into a nonsensical game that required him to don a tiara. Olivia observed from the doorway, arms crossed, a whirlwind of emotions swirling behind her gaze. Nicholas glanced up at her, still adorned with the plastic crown, and smiled. "You did an incredible job," he said. "They're amazing." She didn't smile, but her eyes softened. "Indeed they are. And I have no desire to take any of it away from you." "I understand," she replied. Yet, uncertainty loomed ahead. Nicholas acknowledged the silence. He too was at a loss. He understood what was next. Rising to his feet, he approached her and spoke softly, ensuring the girls remained oblivious. "Allow me to be included, not due to any mowing but because I seek to earn it. For them, for you, regardless of the time it demands." At last, since their reunion, Olivia held his gaze. She gave a nod, and that marked the dawn of a fresh chapter. In the days that ensued, Nicholas refrained from making extravagant vows, issuing demands, or imposing himself where he wasn't invited. Rather, he simply made his presence known. Each morning, he would quietly bring coffee for Olivia and a little something for the girls. Nothing over the top, just a gesture of kindness. It might be a fresh set of colored pencils, a pack of stickers, or even a book about dinosaurs that Lily had casually mentioned. He didn't linger initially. He understood that Olivia required space to adapt, to grasp that this iteration of him wasn't here to retrieve the past or interfere with what she had established. He was merely seeking to find his place in the now. The girls greeted him with open arms. In just a week, they found themselves eagerly anticipating his arrival by the window. As soon as they spotted him coming, they would dash to the door, their laughter ringing through the hallway. Nicholas arrived. Ava called out to him, while June insisted he take a seat next to her for breakfast, and Lily urged him to learn the latest dance she had created in the living room. He ended up folding laundry with Olivia as the girls played nearby. He led them to the park, grasping all three of their small hands in his much larger ones as they navigated the street. He read stories to them, familiarized himself with their bedtime rituals, assisted in tidying up toys, and inquired about things he found puzzling. Things that Olivia had previously managed all by herself. Initially, Olivia observed everything from afar. She was courteous, even friendly, yet uncertain. The memory of the night she discovered her pregnancy lingered, along with the fear that ensued. She could still recall the sensation of envisioning the moment she would share the news with him, and how his reaction seemed to erase her entire future. Yet, this iteration of Nicholas stood apart. He exuded a gentler demeanor, not born of frailty, but of understanding. He absorbed words more than he dispensed them. He extended his assistance without insistence. He allowed her to take the reins. Gradually, her defenses started to soften. On a rainy afternoon, as the girls slept peacefully, the small living room was filled with the gentle sound of distant thunder. Olivia nestled at one end of the couch, a book resting on her lap, while Nicholas occupied the armchair, a cup of untouched tea in his hands. "I keep waiting for you to disappear," she remarked suddenly, her gaze fixed elsewhere. He didn't feign confusion. "I won't either." She shut the book but still avoided his gaze. "It's not that I lack faith in your words. It's just that I struggle to cease my expectations. I hold no resentment towards you," he remarked. "Yet I remain." The room was once more enveloped in silence, dense yet not frigid. When she finally turned her gaze toward him, her eyes shimmered, not with sorrow but with the burden of solitude she had borne for an eternity. "Do you regret not knowing them?" she asked. "More than anything in my life," he answered without hesitation. "But that doesn't mean I'm going to spend the rest of my time with them apologizing. I wish to create something meaningful with them, Olivia. I want them to understand that I'm not merely passing through. They already see you as something greater than that," she said gently. "Yet I'm still in the process of determining my thoughts about you." He nodded. "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." The thunder outside rumbled a little louder, yet within, the silence between them transformed. It was no longer a matter of distance. It was starting to resemble trust. That evening, as the girls dashed to him in their pajamas and enveloped him in a warm goodnight group hug, Olivia lingered in the doorway, observing silently. There was no need for words. Her eyes conveyed everything. Nicholas lifted his gaze to hers, and in that fleeting moment, the connection between them transformed into something entirely different. It wasn't quite love this time. Not just yet. But there was a glimmer of hope. And that was more than sufficient. A month went by, bringing with it an unexpected sense of rhythm. Nicholas no longer felt like an outsider. He wasn't merely the person who arrived with warm muffins or bedtime stories. He had transformed into a steadfast presence. The girls began to speak of him as if he had always been a part of their lives, inquiring whether he would attend the school play, if he could accompany them to the doctor's appointment, and if he would teach them to swim during the summer. They didn't seek permission to love him. They simply did. And Nicholas, who had once navigated life with the assurance of one who possessed it all, now stood humbled by three small hearts that had embraced him freely and without expectation. Olivia observed him intently during this period, not with doubt any longer, but with a sense of cautious amazement. He was nothing like the man she had left behind. That man was driven, brilliant, and charming, yet also distant, perpetually 10 steps ahead of the present moment. This Nicholas knelt to tie shoelaces, stood in line for preschool pickup, and had glitter stuck to his cuffs from assisting with craft projects. He carried June to bed when she dozed off in the car and kept extra juice boxes in his briefcase, just in case someone got thirsty. He was stepping into the role of a father not merely in name but in spirit. The depth of her desire to welcome him back was both exhilarating and frightening, not only for their sake but for her own. One evening, after a whirlwind of errands and birthday party preparations, Olivia found herself alone with him in the kitchen, the girls happily coloring at the table behind them. She stirred the pasta while he stood beside her, drying dishes without a word of request. The quietness of the moment, this domestic tranquility, seemed more intimate than anything they had shared previously. After a pause, she remarked, "I used to envision what this would be like if you had known. If we had nurtured them side by side from the beginning." Nicholas kept his gaze down. He polished a glass and placed it softly on the counter. "Since the moment I met them, that thought has lingered in my mind daily. I try not to dwell on it too often," she murmured softly, "because it brings too much pain. It seems as though I've taken an entire existence from everyone." He turned to look at her. "You haven't taken anything. You acted according to your understanding at the time. I disliked it, indeed. I held on to that resentment. Yet, I observe them now, their happiness radiating, their sense of safety evident, and I realize they weren't lacking in love. They had yours. I simply wish they could have experienced mine as well." She gazed at him, her eyes brimming yet holding back the tears. "You're saying everything perfectly, Nick. It's difficult not to let myself trust it. I'm not here to deliver the expected lines," he stated. "I'm here to remain. And if remaining requires demonstrating my worth each and every day, I will. Not to erase the past, but to create something more meaningful from it." A heavy silence enveloped them, charged with feeling, and then Lily's voice broke through from behind, presenting a drawing. "Mom, I sketched Father." Both of them turned simultaneously. Olivia blinked, taken aback, while Nicholas stood still. None of the girls had referred to him that way before, not in such a straightforward manner. Lily appeared unaware of the significance of her words. She beamed with pride, displaying a hastily drawn picture of him adorned with a crown, stick-figure arms intertwined with those of 3 smaller girls. He took a deep breath. Olivia glanced at him, then at Lily, and returned her gaze to him. A smile spread across her face. A subtle, tentative, yet genuine smile. It didn't signify consent, not at this moment. It wasn't an act of yielding. Yet, it was a recognition that a change had occurred once more, that the gap between fear and forgiveness was at last closing. That evening, as he bid goodnight to the girls and Olivia lingered in the doorway, observing him tuck the blanket around Ava, she murmured gently, "Just for him. You're making it happen, Nick. You're stepping into the role of a father." He remained silent, simply nodding, visibly touched, gazing at her as if she had just given him everything he ever wanted. In a sense, she truly had. With the arrival of spring came extended days and softer mornings, and everything in their lives began to flourish alongside it. Nicholas found himself carving out moments from his meticulously organized corporate schedule to spend more time with the girls, not out of obligation, but because it felt like the only time that truly counted. He was no longer just present for the significant events. He showed up for the little, easily overlooked moments. The cereal scattered before school, the missing socks, the laughter during bath time, and the gentle cuddles when someone needed comfort. Olivia had stopped doubting the permanence of his devotion. She noticed it in the way the girls gazed at him, how they instinctively reached for his hand, and the ease with which they called him Dad now. It was most evident in Nicholas's eyes as he looked at them, as if they were the heart of a universe he hadn't known was incomplete. One Saturday afternoon, the 5 of them ventured to a nearby spring fair. The girls donned identical denim jackets, flitting between booths with their faces adorned in paint and fingers sticky from cotton candy. Nicholas purchased an excessive number of raffle tickets, only to lose at every game, yet he feigned indifference. He allowed them to persuade him into riding the carousel thrice consecutively, despite his disdain for the dizzying turns, simply to relish their laughter. Olivia trailed behind, camera poised, capturing what seemed to be their inaugural day as a cohesive group. Passers-by offered smiles, perceiving them as just another young family relishing the weekend. The weight of their history remained unseen. No one witnessed the years of struggle or the heartache endured to reach this moment. And for the first time, she was oblivious to it all. That evening, after the girls had finally drifted off to sleep, worn out from sweets and sunshine, Nicholas and Olivia found themselves together on the tiny balcony of their hotel suite. The sky had transformed into a gentle navy hue, with city lights twinkling like far-off stars. Olivia rested against the railing, her hair gathered in a relaxed braid, the night breeze caressing her face. Nicholas stood next to her, arms crossed, his demeanor now unguarded and firmly grounded. "It was the most wonderful day," she whispered. "I felt the same," he responded. "I can't recall the last moment I experienced such joy." "What do you mean?" "As if I was escaping something." She glanced at him. "Were you trying to escape me back then?" "I was fleeing from anything beyond my grasp. And you were always an enigma to me. You loved fiercely, you dreamed boldly, and you never quite belonged in my realm, Olivia. But now I understand the reality. I was unprepared to navigate your universe. You showed remarkable courage in nurturing 3 lives independently. You didn't sit back and wait for a savior. You transformed into everything they required. And I aspire to be someone worthy of standing beside that." Her eyes shimmered with unspoken feelings, yet she remained silent for a moment. Then, she reached into her pocket and retrieved a cherished silver necklace, the heart he had gifted her all those years prior. She cradled it in her hand, the moonlight dancing on its surface. "I kept it," she murmured, "even when I wished to forget." Even as I reassured myself that it was insignificant, Nicholas reached out softly and wrapped her fingers around it. "It still holds significance. And so do you." The silence between them transformed once more, evolving into something delicate and profound. It was neither longing nor apology, but rather the faint resonance of forgiveness beginning to take shape. "I don't know what this means," she said, her voice barely rising above the whisper of the wind. "It doesn't have to mean anything yet," he replied. "It just has to be real." They lingered in silence, not as former lovers or co-parents discussing obligations, but as 2 individuals who had each faced their own struggles and were now tentatively starting to mend the connection they once shared. When Olivia rested her head softly on his shoulder, Nicholas remained still. He offered no words. He remained there, calm and confident, allowing the burden of her trust to rest upon him as if it were a cherished gift. Summer unfolded softly, with golden rays that stretched into the twilight and a warmth that enveloped everything like a long-awaited sigh of relief. The girls wrapped up their school year adorned with paper crowns and sticky fingers from ice cream, while Olivia started to envision a serene escape to the coast, a moment for them all to inhale deeply, free from the clamor of the city and the heavy shadows of the past looming nearby. What she didn't anticipate was Nicholas extending an invitation to join them, not merely as a guest or a provider, but as an integral part of their circle. When she hesitated before responding, uncertain of the implications, he simply stated, "I just want to be where they are." She found herself believing him. The quaint house they rented sat just minutes from the ocean, nestled behind dunes and swaying grasses, featuring a rustic porch and a garden alive with hummingbirds. It lacked luxury and polish, yet it embodied a perfection found only in simplicity. The girls dashed barefoot over wooden floors, giggled in the surf, and drifted off to the soothing sound of waves through the open windows. Nicholas, who once flourished amidst towering skyscrapers and rigid timelines, now devoted his mornings to crafting pancakes in the form of sea creatures and his evenings to reading 3 stories consecutively, as consensus on a single tale eluded them. He bore sand in his shoes, freckles dancing across his nose, and a tranquility in his gaze that had long been absent. Olivia observed him, always in silence. She observed the way he supported Lily when fatigue set in, how he allowed Ava to refine his shell identification skills without a hint of interruption, and how he respected June's need for space when shyness took hold, always returning with a soothing presence rather than imposing pressure. He never attempted to substitute the years he had lost. Instead, he enriched the moments that were blossoming before them. In those moments, as she observed her daughter's trust in him and the gentle way he communicated with them, Olivia felt the last remnants of her internal barriers start to dissolve. On their final evening by the coast, they gathered around a small fire pit in the yard. The girls toasted marshmallows while Nicholas assisted them in carefully rotating the sticks to prevent them from charring. Olivia sat on the steps of the porch, barefoot, wrapped in a sweater that once belonged to him, but somehow never found its way back after one too many chilly nights. The moon hung high, and the stars scattered like tails across the sky. When the girls finally drifted off, curled together on the couch with half-finished esmores still in their hands, Nicholas joined her on the steps. At first, he remained silent, sitting there as the quiet enveloped them, transforming from a problem to a shared experience. Gradually, he reached into his pocket and retrieved a small object. It was a delicate silver chain, complementing the one she had cherished for years, the second half of a set, with a heart shaped to fit seamlessly with hers. He opened his palm and presented it to her. "I had this made when I purchased yours," he said, "yet I never handed it over. I believed it was best to hold off for the perfect moment." She gazed at it, then turned her eyes to him, her tone gentle yet unwavering. "And now I'm done waiting," he declared. "Not for them, not for you. I understand that returning to the past is not an option. I'm not seeking that. What I desire is to progress together if you are open to it. Not as an idealized version of our past selves, but as the individuals we have become. Imperfect, more insightful, prepared." Olivia cradled the pendant in her palm for what felt like an eternity. It radiated warmth from having been tucked away in his pocket, yet it seemed as though it had been patiently awaiting her touch as well. She reflected on the countless nights spent clinging to the original, questioning her own wisdom in preserving it. Now, with the gentle sea breeze rustling the leaves and the warm glow of the fire dancing on Nicholas's features, she allowed herself to embrace a belief she had long suppressed. She extended her hand toward his. "I'm ready," she said. He remained silent for a moment, simply wrapping his fingers around hers and releasing a breath that felt like the weight of the world had finally been lifted. It lacked drama. It wasn't like a scene from a film. It was subtle, commonplace, and authentic. The following morning, the girls awoke to discover their parents on the porch, sipping coffee, nestled together, sharing laughter over an inside joke. In that fleeting moment, with the ocean's gentle murmur in the background and a day brimming with sandcastle adventures ahead, they sensed the void that had lingered for far too long. It was more than just love, but home. What resonates with me most about the conclusion of this narrative is its serene and rooted nature. It shuns grand proclamations or dramatic turns, opting instead for something profoundly impactful. Genuine emotion and a connection that feels truly deserved. Nicholas doesn't reclaim his family with wealth or charisma. He restores trust in the only way that truly counts, through unwavering presence, through patience, and by committing to show up even in difficult times. This evolution, from a man who once shied away from vulnerability to one who embraces it, is what lends the conclusion its significance. Olivia's path is equally profound. Her forgiveness unfolds at its own pace, and her trust is a precious gift, making it all the more poignant when she finally extends her hand, not out of desperation, but from a place of readiness to embrace love once more. The girls, with their pure hearts and unguarded spirits, serve as the link that brings together two souls who believed too much had slipped away. This is not a storybook ending where all is instantly resolved. It's an extraordinary narrative, focusing on individuals who fracture, grow, and mend in the moment. By the conclusion, what they have created together transcends merely being a second opportunity at a past existence. It embodies the inaugural opportunity for a genuine, fresh life. And that, for me, is the most fulfilling type of conclusion.